have an amazing new poll that came out from the Kaiser Family Foundation on vaccines. So take a look at this here. About half of unvaccinated adults say nothing will convince them to get a COVID-19 vaccine. Nothing, 48% would convince them. More research or transparency, 12%. If it were required for work / if it were mandatory, 6%. Money and large sums of money, 5%. If a doctor recommended it, 3%. If it prevented 100% of infections, 3%. So obviously the plurality, almost a majority, say nothing is going to convince me. Nothing. Nearly 50%. There's absolutely nothing you could say to me, or no amount of research or evidence or data that would push me in the direction of getting the vaccine. That's really astounding. Now, by the way, I don't really believe all of the numbers here. I think some of them are underreported, and we could talk about that more in a second, but let me continue to show you the graphs here. So this one is Switzerland. COVID-19 weekly death rate by vaccination status, all ages. Unvaccinated people, there are 13 deaths per 100,000 people for unvaccinated people. 1.44 for fully vaccinated, no booster, and then 0.27 for fully vaccinated plus booster. Let's go to the next one. So this is weekly cases in New York City. Not fully vaccinated, the line goes straight up. Vaccinated, the line ticks up just a touch. And then you see underneath there, we have the Seattle area. Not fully vaccinated, it shoots straight up. Vaccinated, it shoots up a little bit, but nowhere near as much. So I'm showing you these charts because maybe one of these fence sitters is in the audience right now listening, and I want to show you that there's a tremendous amount of evidence and data and research that is not funded by the big pharma companies, which shows, no, actually, this thing does work, particularly against severe illness, hospitalization, and death. Particularly against that. There has been diminishing efficacy in terms of it protecting you from getting it. So the new evidence is like, look, you can still get Omicron if you're vaccinated. It doesn't protect as much against getting it, but it will be much more mild if you're vaccinated. Because the virus has evolved, so the original vaccines don't work perfectly in terms of you don't get it, but you, generally speaking, you don't end up in the hospital and you don't end up dying from it. So I'm trying to make the argument here for people, but who knows if they'll listen, because 50% of the unvaccinated say, nothing's going to change my mind. Now, I want to give you the upside of that, though. I want to give you the good news. The good news is we already have 80% of the country has at least one shot in their arm. 80%. So that means if half of the remaining say, I'll never get vaccinated, that means we could still get to 90% of the country that's vaccinated. That's a pretty damn good number, man. That's a pretty damn good number. So despite the disproportionate noise made particularly online from the anti-vax community, they do represent a fringe. They're a very loud and vocal and aggressive fringe, but they do represent a fringe. Now, I said before, I'm not even sure I trust the numbers here, or certain numbers. And here's why. There were a lot of people who said in certain fields, like, look, I'll quit if I have to get if I'm forced to get the vaccine, if there's a vaccine mandate in my particular workplace. And then when there actually was a vaccine mandate implemented, it was only like a fraction of the people who said that they'd quit who actually quit. I think there was one with police officers, and there were like thousands who said, look, man, I'll quit if you do this. But then of the thousands, only like 6 people actually quit. So I think when it's, 5% of people say money will get me to change my mind, I actually think it's more than that. I actually think if you really offered people $100 or $200 to get vaccinated, I think it would be way more than 5% who changed their mind and they would go get vaccinated because, look, people need money. People need money. Same thing with, 6% say if it was required for work, I'd do it. I think that number would actually be higher too. I do. But having said all that, there are some who under no circumstances would get it. And that means, having a principled stance against getting the vaccine is so weird to me because that is no different than having a principled stance against therapeutic. Because people like, there's some side effects sometimes with the vaccines. Okay, well, there's also side effects with any sort of treatment when you're sick. Some percentage of the population will have some reaction to some treatment that's not good. So, but would anybody say, I have a principled opposition to antibiotics? under no circumstance will I ever get it. No matter what the evidence says, no matter what the studies and the data says about how well it works, I will not do it. Nothing will change my mind. We'd all look at that like that is literally the most bullheaded, idiotic thing I've ever heard. But with vaccines, we've just come to like sort of passively accept it. Like, yeah, of course. That's wild to me, man. That's wild to me. That just goes to show you there is, with some segment of the population, they look at like anecdotal stories or bad information from bad sources, and they think that's the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and they refuse to look at any evidence to the contrary. And it's sad. It really is sad, because I feel bad for those people, and it makes me hate our institutions, which didn't communicate effectively enough to convince people, no, seriously, this is the right way to do it, and we can prove to you why. I think the CDC, the FDA, our health officials in this country have been so bad on this that it makes people turn away and go towards other charlatans and con men and frauds who don't know what they're talking about or are giving a misleading picture as to the reality of the situation. So anyway, get vaccinated. But hey, if you're in the 50% that says under no circumstances, it's like I'm talking to a brick wall anyway, so I guess just ignore what I'm saying, but do it at your own peril. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.